Ask Mike, brought to you by the Stadium Shop on Razorback in Fayetteville.
Happy Monday, everybody. It's another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin. Mike, we got a big scare, a lot of questions.
That Sam Pittman's been heavily criticized in a game in a long time, right?
It is, and we saw it all over Twitter. And I know you were talking to people.
I was in the middle of it too. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
When I start tweeting, it's bad.
Mike, you're not wrong about that. Let's get into the questions, though, for this week. Metropolis Hog, who says, I think our starters came into the game not expecting to play very long. At the same time, Bobby Petrino came in wanting to show Arkansas what could have been 10 years ago. What are your thoughts?
I don't think that was Petrino's motivation. And I know people that know him. I know one person in particular that knows him really well. I was told that he has no issues with Arkansas. He wasn't trying to prove some point to Arkansas. That he has a very favorable attitude about the school, the fans, the whole atmosphere, and that he only just has regret that he messed all that up. Now, he expressed that last year at the Little Rock Touchdown Club.
Yeah.
He said everybody treated him great, and he's embarrassed by the fact that he took advantage of it. So, no, I don't think he came in here wanting to, I'll show you people. I think, though, if you saw he and Sam Pittman before the game, they're like buddies. They were like pals.
Yeah, it was.
And after the game, he apparently told Pittman, go win it all. So they're friends. But also, when you're in coaching, it's very common to go up against your friends. And what you have to do when you're going up against a game, against a friend, is when that game's going on, they're not your friend anymore. They're just the guy on the other side of the field. And I think that was his attitude in this game. Okay, this is a game, I'm trying to win it. I'm not mad at anybody, but I want to win. And I think that was his motivation. I don't think he had any issues about Arkansas, I'll show you, or any of that stuff.
Yeah, was it go win it all or give me a call? I saw conflicting reports about that on social media.
Well, it could have been.
Give me a call, maybe about like a job?
Well, no, just like talking.
To talk, yeah.
Just buddies.
I like go win it all, though.
Go win it all would be good.
That is a good one.
And that's something that Pittman could have said to him, too, because they're in good position to win the FCS.
Yeah,
so.
That would be awesome as well. Jeff Matthews says, nothing Kendall Briles does makes sense. Been saying it for 3 years now.
You know, Briles got roasted on social media for the play calling in that game, and I'm going to call foul on that. I have no proof. I've talked about this before. None of us are on that sidelines hooked into those headsets.
No.
We don't know what's going on. It is an assumption is made by a lot of fans that because Briles is the offensive coordinator, he calls all the plays. That's ridiculous. You got a head coach there. He knows what's going on. He's also been a part of your game plan. And I think the play calling was largely dictated by Sam Pittman, and here's why I say it. First of all, they ran the ball up the middle almost exclusively in the first half, except for a few plays, and those few plays are what got them back into the game at halftime. We talked about me tweeting during the game. I was like, where's their vertical passing game?
Yeah.
Where's Matt Landers? Where's Jaden Hazelwood? Where's Warren Thompson? Where are these guys? And then very briefly, they went to him, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, you score really quickly. Okay, Sam Pittman comes out of the halftime dressing room. Tara Talmadge talks to him, and she said, we didn't see him say this, she was just quoting him. He said, we've got to run the ball more. That told me that was his plan all along. I don't have a big disagreement with that plan in the beginning, and I even talked about the possibility that maybe their plan would be to keep Bobby Petrino's offense off the field by going on these long ball control drives, burn up a lot of clock, reduce the number of offensive snaps they get in the game. That's a common strategy when you're going up against somebody who's got a really good offense. But it was pretty obvious from the first possession that wasn't working because Arkansas went Rocket Sanders 3 yards, Rocket Sanders 2 yards, incomplete pass on third down, punt. Okay?
It was predictable.
So it was obvious that you couldn't just line up and run over those guys. And the thing I felt like you had to look at before the game was ever played was when you looked at their stats, their interior defense was the better part of their defense. That they'd been giving up a lot of passing yards. They hadn't been giving up many rushing yards. And I felt like Arkansas was not only one-dimensional toward running it, they were trying to run it up the middle a lot.
A lot.
And weren't doing RPOs to the outside or anything. They weren't attacking the edges. So I think he got criticized a lot for a lot of stuff that I think was Sam Pittman's game plan. And then when they realized they had to deviate from that game plan, then things started to work.
Yeah.
But I've always felt like it's a mistake just to assume that the offensive coordinator is calling all the plays. You don't know what the percentage is there. There are plenty of times, I promise you, when the head coach says, no, we're not doing that, we're doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you think that was Kendall Briles' decision to go for it on 4th and 8 or whatever?
Yeah, 4th and 9, yeah.
Yeah, whatever that was. I don't think that was his decision.
Yeah, well, even Sam Pittman talked about it in the press conference. It sounded like he took took
yes,
responsibility
that's the thing we
for it.
like about Pittman is he admits that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Alabama Hog says Coach Sam Pittman stated that he was outcoached. Do you agree with his assessment, or was that just coach speak to shift the heat from the players?
No, it's just what we were talking about. I think he genuinely meant that. And I think he was talking about play calling when he said in his offensive game plan when he talked about getting outcoached. I think he knew that he played right into Bobby Petrino's hands. Instead of keeping the ball away from him, by not being able to move the football, they gave the ball back to them more often and put Missouri State's offense on the field more with more snaps. And so I think that's what he was admitting. And again, what we like about Sam Pittman, so many people tell me this, is I don't think he does coach speak. I think he really meant that when he said it.
Yeah, and I think so too. And when I tweeted that out on our Pig Trail account, people were like, "This is why we love Sam Pittman."
Yeah, absolutely.
He can admit it, and he can admit his faults as well. Peter N. Haras. I like Haras.
We don't know.
I'm going to go with Haras. That sounds pretty. Running it on 4th and 9, like we were talking about, and then not letting KJ go on 4th and 3 ruined his confidence.
See, I don't think he had a lack of confidence in that game. If he had a problem in that game, I think he was hamstrung a little bit by the play calling, but he still had a really good game. I think he passed for 2 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. His passing numbers, did he set a personal record in that?
Oh, yeah, I think it was a career high for him.
Career high of almost 400 yards passing. So I don't think he had any issues in that game other than the fact that, yes, you could tell when he came off he wanted to go for it on that 4th and short. But I don't think it did some long-term thing to his head because they came back and played their best football in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
So that's clearly there wasn't something in his head that was causing him to mess up.
Yeah.
And I don't think he messed up anyway. I think he played a good game.
Yeah, me too. And he said he was confident in his O-line as well. He was like, I knew I could do whatever I needed to do because of them. So I don't think it was his confidence at all. But Adam Dotson says it's crazy what doing anything other than running up the middle will do for you.
Yeah, that was a tweet that was sent to me right after they had gone like 80 whatever yards in 2 plays when they started to throw it.
Right.
And I think that's what he was reacting to. Look what happens when you do something other than run the ball up the middle, how successful you can be. And that was just frustration on his part and a lot of other people. I think, look, when you win the game, who cares? It's over. But you've got to understand that people have a right to get stressed in the middle of a game when they see things that don't make any sense to them. There were a lot of people got on Twitter and attacked those people, like, how dare you, you're a fair weather fan, you know, the first time there's a problem, you start doing this. But I think fans have a right to be actively engaged in what they're looking at. And when you're looking at something that even rudimentary, if you're a rudimentary fan who doesn't know a lot about X's and O's, can tell that when you continue to run the ball up the middle and it doesn't work, you should try something else.
Yeah, I think that's a really good assessment. Josh Brown says, pass for 362 so far. Don't think it's an issue.
Now, that's a reaction. That's one of these things where, hey, everybody's complaining about not passing. But they passed for 300 and actually 380, I think.
Yeah, like at the end.
But they did that in the end. That doesn't mean that at some points in the game you're not scratching your head going, why are you not throwing the football? Yes. When they got backed up, 2 different times when they were down 17-0 in the first half, right before halftime, and then later early in the fourth quarter when they were down by 10 points. Both those times, then they started throwing the football. And that's what got you up to the number that you have. But to just put that tweet out there, it makes it, well, what are you talking about? Why are you complaining about a lack of passing? Look what they ended up with. They ended up with it because they were forced to do it, and it worked. But that doesn't mean that it was working at the time. It doesn't mean it was happening the entire game, because it wasn't. There were long stretches of that game where, you were just going, where's the passing game?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
You ever heard the phrase, the stat sheet doesn't tell the full story of the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a great example of that one.
In the end, they had a lot of passing yardage, but
Yeah.
for a long time, they didn't.
Exactly, I agree with that. Reacting to Jalen Catalon's season-ending injury, Slobber Hog says, or Slobber Slob?
Slobber Slob.
I keep wanting to say Slobber Hog, you know. I was concerned that the secondary might not hold up. I'm so happy that they put my fears to rest. With Slush back, what are you thinking for postseason potential?
We don't know that Slush is back for sure.
Pittman did say today in his press conference he would be out there on the field for practice today.
And he was talking about that last week.
I know, but he
this
said he
is the
will
most we
be.
think he's ready, and then he's not ready or whatever. It would be good news to get him back. I don't know about Bishop. I didn't go to the press conference.
No, I don't know about Bishop
So they
either.
didn't talk about that. This is a beat-up secondary, but
No
here's
Bishop.
I
Will.
didn't hear anything about
Okay. Will, who went to the press conference
Yeah.
for us, said
that.
he didn't
He
hear.
said Slusher would be at practice today.
Okay. See.
Which is huge.
Yeah. Slusher will be
So,
at practice today, but we don't know
when
about
you start
Bishop.
talking about the secondary, here's what you have to admit. When you look at every area of this football team, I don't care what you're talking about, punting, punt return, kickoffs, kickoff returns, offense, defense, D-line, D-ends, running backs, quarterback, almost every one of those areas are solid. I think we would acknowledge the one issue is the secondary. Because why? Because they're dead last in yardage given up in the entire BCS.
Yeah.
Last. They've given up more passing yards than any other team in the country. So that has to be a concern. But there's kind of a little light here that you have to acknowledge. And that is about half of the passing yards that they've given up are on yaks, yards after the catch. And that's on missed tackles. So if they stop missing these tackles, they could cut that down significantly. And that's the hope that you have to have, is that at some point this is going to stop. I mean, even Bumper Poole did it.
And Drew Sanders a few missed tackles as well. So.
And mostly what it is overrunning the football, which means you've got an open field situation where someone who's a running back, receiver, quarterback with good speed and good shiftiness is in an open field situation. You got to beat on them, and your natural instinct, your brain tells you, I'm going to truck this person. I'm going to run over them like they're in the middle of the interstate, right? That's an issue, because when you come at somebody full speed, they're looking at you and they're going, okay, here he is. There go the one. You go. You're trying to go here, and they go there, and you end up going off into space. I call it getting olayed, and it happens a lot when you don't slow down right before you make the tackle, get a base, and then wrap up. Wrapping somebody up is not nearly as impressive as running over them like roadkill, but it's more effective. And that's what they have to stop doing, is they have to stop going after these people in open field situations like they're trying to run over them, and just wrap up and hold them. Let somebody else come help you bring them to the ground.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is something that's taught, junior high, high school?
Coach Vanoy,
Yeah.
7th grade, he got us out there in about the 3rd grade, and he took a bunch of us who were linebackers and put us out there in a drill against running backs who were quicker than we were and had better lateral movement. And he let them make idiots out of us. And then he showed us how to approach that, which is first of all, you don't look at their face, you look in the middle of their chest, because he explained wherever that chest goes, that's where they're going. There's no head fake with the chest. If they're going to move this way with their legs, their body will go that way too. So that you're looking in the middle of the chest, and then right before you get to the point of tackle, you've got to almost come to a stop and be prepared to go left or right. And that's a 7th grade thing you learn.
So.
And look, this isn't uncommon. I've seen guys in the NFL do stuff like this. We see NFL guys trying to do shoulder tackles all the time when you're taught to wrap up. So ignoring fundamentals is not something that exclusively happens to Arkansas's players.
Yeah, I think they'll go back to the basics this week in practice.
Well, hopefully
maybe a
they
little
will.
bit. Yeah, hopefully they will. Razor Alex says, 88 says, 3 straight home games, and I must say, all 3 were electric atmospheres. We got ourselves a 12th man in Razorback Nation in Razorback Stadium. I cannot wait to experience Bama game in 2 weeks.
Well, it's amazing what happens when you're ranked, and especially as you go and find yourself ranked in the top 10. I can't remember a season in which they had 70,000 plus for 3 straight games. That's where the difference is. We've had crowds of that size, but you'll have a big crowd and then the next game's not as cool, so some people don't show up. There's a part of your fan base that's not going to a game unless you're a top 10 team. If you became a top 5 team, there would be even another part of the fan base that would show up. And so I think that's why we're seeing these 70,000 plus seat attendance because of where they're ranked. Now, the loudest I've ever seen Reynolds Razorback Stadium was in the 2010 Alabama game, which Arkansas at one point was leading early on. The people were going nuts because they thought they were going to beat Alabama. It can be louder this time because they have more seats in there now, and the north end zone is enclosed where it wasn't before. But that's only if it's a game, if you're in it. So you can't go out against Alabama and get down 21 points. That's going to kill the crowd. So I think what he's saying is valid, but the issue is, does it stay that way the whole season?
Yeah, will it be? I feel like it's got to be that way for the Alabama game, though.
Well, at the beginning.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
will it sustain itself because of your play on the field? Do you keep that a close game? And if you do, I think they've got a shot because that place can be unreal if you got Alabama in a crack.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It definitely is a scary place for opponents to play at. Tim Tino, that's good. I like that. Tim Tino says, with the NIL ruling coming down, a new college football video game was announced. They give every team a rating on how good they are from 0 to 99. What rating from 0 to 99 do you think the Razorbacks should get? I assume he means this year, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess so.
I'd give them a 90 right now. Now, if they would correct those problems that we mentioned in the secondary and maybe get away from this run up the middle play calling stuff, I might go up to a 95.
Ooh, okay.
But right now, I'd say about a 90.
All right.
That's pretty good.
I think that's pretty fair. I think I would give them a 90 as well. That seems pretty fair. Marty Bride's proxy wants to know, being a native Texan, did your perception of the Aggies change after you started covering the Hogs and the SWC? It seems the Aggies have always underachieved.
Okay, those are 2 different questions. My perception of them and have they always underachieved. To me, it's the Longhorns that have always underachieved. A&M hasn't always recruited the way they are these days. They've always had pretty good recruits, and they've always had a history of cheating. But they haven't had Texas-type talent, I think, until they went into the SEC. That really jacked their recruiting up. But let's go back to the perception of A&M once I started covering them. The first time I was ever around any Aggies was maybe 10 years old, took my lawn mowing money and went to a game in Lubbock. And I was going to all the games that year. And so you're sitting in the visitor section because the seats are cheaper. That's what I could afford. So you have to put up with sitting with the other team's fans. And most of the fans were okay. I didn't like the Longhorn fans. They were arrogant. But the A&M fans weren't arrogant. They were weirdos. It's like I told my wife, I was trying to explain this to her. And I said, have you ever been to a party where you end up talking to somebody that you didn't know, happens a lot,
Yeah.
and you come back home and you think, that person is bizarre. That was my first reaction after being in the Aggie section, probably 1960, somewhere in there. I just went back home and I was like, God, I don't even understand what those people were talking about. So did it change once I started covering, the Aggies in a Southwest Conference? Yes, it did. Because then, now for the first time, I'm actually going to a town full of Aggies and a university full of Aggies and a stadium full of Aggies. So instead of being around 400 or 500 fans sitting in a section, it's like you're in Aggie Weirdoville. I mean, it's the strangest thing. Again, you're just walking around going, what is this place? I remember one day trying to get from point A to point B on campus. I'm having to walk down a sidewalk. So I'm here, and I know I have to go over there. Big, long sidewalk down and a left turn. Why don't I just cut across the grass? Immediately, some student comes out of nowhere and says that I've just trespassed onto the Billy blah, blah, blah Memorial Lawn. Some World War I guy that they had honored with this memorial lawn. And I'm like, what? I don't know anything about that. And he said, and I told him, I said, if you want people to respect that, put a sign up.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was doing anything wrong, but that's the thing. They expect you to know these things. They just do. I went there one time on the Old Southwest Conference press tour where they take you to the best places to eat in every place to kind of show off, well, look what we have here. When we went to the Aggie place to eat, they took us to this rib place, but you walk in there and you order ribs, because that's what they have. They bring out a big thing of butcher paper and put it over the table, and then when they bring the ribs, you don't have plates. They just put it on the butcher paper. And you've just got ribs on butcher paper, and there's no like things, forks and stuff, and you're just sitting there like, I felt like I was a caveman, just eating ribs and throwing them and eating some more. And I remember when we all got through, because there's a bunch of media people, there was just a big giant pile of bones on the table like we'd attacked a prehistoric pig and devoured it. And the whole thing was just bizarre. I was like, I don't want to eat at that place anymore.
Weird.
It was strange. So that's where it changed. It changed in that when you're just around more of them, you're in the place where it all originated. Now, as far as them underachieving, I have a theory about that, because they do get good players. I think when you have to live and work in that place every day, it weirds you out. It would me. If I had to be there all the time, I think after about 6 months, I don't know what I'd turn into. But I think it takes these normal high school athletes, you get them on campus, and then they've just been in that environment for a month, then 2 months, then 3 months, and it's like,
their brains get mush.
yeah, it just gets all goofy, and then you don't play well in the game. That's my theory.
That's a good theory. I mean, they don't go to a midnight yell.
Oh.
We've proven that, right?
And they're still doing it. They're still putting out these midnight yell videos
I don't understand why they're so mad about it. They put out one for the Miami game.
They did one with an Aggie joke that's not even a joke.
It's really
not even
silly.
Understandable. They did the joke, and when you're through with the joke, you're going, that's a joke?
That's a joke? Where was the punchline?
There's no punchline in this joke.
Well, Team Otis says almost every Tusk has a positive win-loss ratio except for Tusk 5. Tusk 5's record is 16-21 since taking over for his father, Tusk 4, who finished 44-44. Do you think that Arkansas will win enough games for Tusk 5 to have more wins than losses by the end of the season? This is a very interesting question.
Is that not the most bizarre question we've ever gotten? I never even thought about what Tusk 5's record is versus Tusk 4. I didn't even
know they kept track of those.
I'm going to assume that all of those statistics are correct because I'm not going to look it up. I don't even know how I would do that.
How do you do that?
I think you'd probably have to go out and ask the people that
own the Tusk.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to say. I kind of went back and looked at what he said the record was, and it must be that Tusk 5 took over before the last year under Chad Morris. So that was a 2-10 season.
Okay.
And then the first year under Pittman, remember, was 3-7, I think. So that's what put him in the hole. Then last year got him back up a little bit. So if the numbers are correct, Tusk 5 is 5 games under 500. So how does he get back from being underwater? Well, they got to win 5 more games and they lose. So I think they've got the rest of this season to do it. I'm predicting by sometime next year, Tusk 5 will be back out of the red and into the black again. And I think we'll all be very excited because we don't want him to be retired as the losing Tusk 5, the only Tusk to have a losing record.
No, he can't be.
Do you think Tusk cares? He eats grapes and
I know, he lives the life.
Sniffs people.
And he sleeps during the game. Like, I mean, you know.
I don't think he knows what his record is.
Maybe someone should tell him.
Probably doesn't care. He just wants to wallow around in that
He's like,
mud bath
if
they give him.
If they win, do I get a grape?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he
Then
kind of
maybe he does
knows that
care.
when he gets a mud bath, they've won, right?
Oh yeah. So then maybe he does care about what the record is.
I guess. I don't know.
Fork Soda wants to know, do you think some of the hate for Petrino in Arkansas will settle down after this game? I think he conducted himself well and showed that despite dropping to the FCS level, he is an elite coach. Is it time to finally make peace and move
I don't think it really matters whether it's fine to make peace or time to make peace. This is one of those hot button issues where the fan base is divided. And I paid a lot of attention to, look, I know a lot of people on Facebook. Some of them are my friends. And there was one in particular, there was a heated discussion about him. One guy a guy I worked with for many years, started off saying that, man, he can coach, whatever you want to say about him, and he did offer an apology, and I think we should just let this go. Oh, immediately the next guy's like, you're crazy. He's this, he's that. I'm not doing that. What are you doing trying to make things better for him? He doesn't deserve anything. And then somebody else comes in and says, I don't know. I didn't care about it that much when it happened, and I sure don't now all these years later. And so you just get this back and forth, and some people don't want his name mentioned, and other people are fine with it. Some people didn't think he should be fired in the first place. It's not going to go away, but the thing is, it never gets talked about until for some reason he's in the news. So last year when he was at the Touchdown Club, yeah, everybody started talking about it again because he made his apology. And now here you're playing him. Now, I don't think they're supposed to play him again anytime soon. I haven't looked down the schedule, but here's the thing. Anybody with a brain knows after doing what he did, he probably caught the notice of some schools out there looking for a coach. Let's hope one of those schools is not Auburn, because I don't want to have to play that guy. I don't want to have Arkansas have to play that guy. I think he needs to go to Nebraska or Arizona State.
I think Nebraska
Either one of
would be
those places would be good.
I've heard a lot of buzz about Nebraska and him. So,
That
I
would be
mean,
good.
hey, I think that would work out really well for Nebraska fans. Mousetown asks, did you get along with Petrino? How does he compare with Lou Holtz in terms of being hard to deal with?
Well, my only relationship with Holtz was through the media.
Yeah.
And Holtz was terrible to deal with. He was mean. He yelled at us all the time. He made smart aleck remarks. Now, I didn't let it affect me because I just figured it was my job. I was pretty young back then anyway. I'd say whatever you wanted to me. I was just so glad to be doing the work, I didn't care. But Petrino was the opposite of that. Now, he was mean to a lot of other people, really mean to his players, totally mean to people in the Broyle Center, didn't want them talking to him, and even had this rule where if you came down a hallway and you saw him, you couldn't make eye contact with him and all this stuff. So he was hard to deal with large segments of people, but he always got along with the media. We always liked him, and here's what we liked about him, and you can relate to this.
Yeah.
What is the number one issue that most people in the media have with coaches? You know what the number one issue is? Showing up late for press conferences.
Yes.
How many times, even with Sam Pittman, are we sitting in there 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes? We got places to be, we got jobs to do, and we're going, when are they going to show up? Players being late, coaches. Petrino was never late. If he had a press conference at 10 o'clock in the morning, he walked through that door at 10 o'clock. There were guys that had these digital watches that were set to the atomic clock, and so they were dead accurate. And they would sit there, and at 10 o'clock, boom, there he comes in the door.
Awesome.
He was just almost obsessive about that. So we always got along with him. Now, I think I got along with him well because before he ever coached a game here, I got paired in a golf tournament with him. And when you're in a scramble for 4 hours with somebody, you talk a lot. And I knew about his reputation, and so I started telling him about the guy I mentioned before, Bob Vinoy, seventh grade coach. And I told him what Bob Vinoy did was he was determined to run off anybody on that football team that wasn't totally committed to doing what you had to do to win, and he decided to do it on the first day. We had this kid who was 15 years old. The rest of us were 12. He'd flunked 3 grades. So he's huge, and we're like, some of these guys hadn't even gone through puberty yet. They're little skinny guys, you know, out there trying to play junior high football. And he took this guy, and he put him on one end of a gauntlet where everybody's lined up, and you can't go right or left. You're kind of in this little tunnel of players and people on either side. And he would take one of these guys he wanted to run off and make him tackle the guy that was 15. And he would just run over them like they were roadkill. And bam, bam, bam. And so all these guys, after getting run over enough times, are getting up and walking away. He doesn't have to get rid of them. They're getting rid of themselves. And we're watching all these guys leave practice. And finally, when he got through, he said to us, I don't know if any of you guys are worth a as a football player. But one thing I do know, you've got a chance because you're still standing here. Those guys have no chance. And that stayed with me for the rest of my life, because what it told me is, as long as you don't quit, you have a chance. Even if you don't, it doesn't look like you're succeeding, you can if you don't give up.
I love that.
And I told Petrino that story, and he just went bonkers over that. He said, that's what coaching is all about. He said, I know exactly what that guy was trying to do. He didn't want players on his team that weren't totally committed. And he said, I don't want anybody, even on the bench on my team, that's not 100% by. And he said, I test them all the time. So he liked me because I think he knew that I understood what he was doing. Now, in this day and age, man, you know, coaches are getting fired for certain things. This is old school stuff that I was around, and it's not so much anymore. Coaches can get in trouble if they go over the top on some of these things. But in the old days, that's just the way it was. Wilson Matthews, who was kind of Frank Broyles' hatchet man, he used to put players through the meat grinder. But he was a good guy. I had one of them tell me, this is 15 years ago, but he talked about Wilson. He said, he ran me so hard one day after practice, bear crawls, I thought I was going to die. And he said, I got in the shower and just sat down and put cold water over me. I'm just sitting there. And I thought nobody was around. It was 30 minutes after practice was over and everybody else had left. And it was totally quiet in that shower. And he said, all of a sudden, this head pokes around the corner, and it was Wilson. He said, you know, Wilson loves you, don't you? He just wants you to be the best football player you can be. And then he left. And he said, I would have run through a brick wall for him because I understood at that moment what he was all about. Your dad's a coach.
Yeah.
You understand these things.
Yeah.
So this is all Petrino-like stuff, but he's not the – I'll tell you a quick story, though, about this because the story's not over. He saw me again at some point, and he said, that guy you talked about, whatever happened to him, that coach, that 7th grade coach, and it's a true story. I said, he got caught with another guy's wife, and they fired him. Now, this was a long time before all that stuff happened to Petrino, but that's a true story. So maybe there's something about these mean coaches that cause them to have these problems. I don't know, but that's a true story about Bob Vinoy.
Oh, that's way too much of a coincidence.
And again, that was a long time before this other stuff ever happened. I didn't think anything about it at the time.
That's wild, Mike. Finally, there's a question from a customer at the Stadium Shop on Razorback Road. A guy's guy says, that's a weird name. Why, Mike, why are you putting this in the show?
It got sent to me.
Why is that new girl, Courtney, such a bad texter asking for a friend?
Okay, here's my take on this.
Oh, my goodness.
We've all known people that when you text them, it scares the fool out of you because, like, instantly you get a text back. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, that person was reading my mind. You're the opposite of that. Somebody texts you, and then you'll get a text back like a week later, and you don't even remember the original text. And you're going, what's this all about? What are you doing? What's this text mean? And you're going, well, remember? So you are what I would call a tardy texter.
Tardy texter, okay.
You wait too long. Wait so long to answer your text that the person sending the text doesn't know what you're texting about in the first place.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tardy texter.
Now, what is the explanation for this?
I don't know. Sometimes I just forget to text people back.
Now, Will has another explanation for this.
No.
He said that you are so popular that you get so many texts that you're overwhelmed by all those texts, and there's no way you can possibly respond to all of them. So you just don't.
I don't know. Maybe I'll do a better job now.
Okay.
I'll do a better job.
Somebody at the Stadium Shop knows.
Somebody at the Stadium Shop knows. If you're
it was
a guy's
customer
guy,
that brought by, a guy's guy.
if you're a guy's guy, I want to know who you are and which friend you're asking for, because
That's right.
that'll be the real test of what this answer to this
I really don't know who it would be.
I have no idea who it could be. A guy's guy. I'll have to do some digging into that. Maybe someone will ask next week.
You got to go down and ask Robert at the Stadium Shop what this person looked like.
I know. I need to get. Can you do a sketch of me of what this person
Could be a
looked like?
sketch.
Yeah.
We'll put the sketch on the air.
Do you recognize this man? He is a guy's guy. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.